Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chicago Film Office Permitting Workshop. We're presenting this workshop live on YouTube and Facebook. We are the Chicago Film Office. We thought we would walk you kind of through. We get a lot of questions about, from indie filmmakers to students to even the more advanced productions who might be coming to Chicago for the first time, of how do I submit a permit? And so we thought we'd walk you through everything from entry, I'm scouting my location, what do I need to know, all the way through securing a permit so that you can film safely. My name is Tim Olson. I've been with the Chicago Film Office for about a year now. I'm actually did about 13 years in Chicago working as a freelancer in movies, commercials, television series, and all that. So I did a lot of working within the bounds of these permits on location, so I have a lot of experience with that. With me is John Hundreiser, who's been with the Chicago Film Office a little longer. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm John Hundreiser. I'm a policy analyst in the City of Chicago Film Office, and I have been with the city for about 4.5 years. Yes. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is John's going to walk us through first, really the basics. What is a permit? Why do we need one? And going from there. Then he's going to pass it to me, and I'm actually going to show you live on our website how to actually put in a permit. Sometimes the technical glitches are a little bit of a headache for some people, so we just want to show you the easiest way of doing it. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to John to go ahead and get us started here.
Thanks, Tim. What is the Chicago Film Office? The Chicago Film Office, aka the CFO, is a branch of DCASE, which is the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, which is a City of Chicago department. DCASE, beyond providing free programming for the residents of Chicago, permits for parades, festivals, farmers markets, and other special events. The CFO reviews all filming permit applications, including student projects, independent productions, commercials, television series, and movies. We work for the residents of Chicago. Is a permit required to film? Could you put me on the next slide, Tim?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
We get a lot of calls and emails every single day with this question. And, I'd say half of the time, a lot of the inquiries do not require a permit because they are part of a reality television show or a news crew, or they're just filming B-roll of some sort. Any kind of handheld production where you're not setting up equipment on the public way, which is city streets, sidewalks, alleys, that sort of thing, interfering with residents would generally require a permit. But if you can do things without interfering with other residents and without controlling the public way, for example, like telling a resident they have to stop and wait until you're done with your shot, that's not B-roll. That would actually require a permit. So some of the major things to consider that all permits entail are, when you're filming on city property, that's public property, city streets, sidewalks, alleys, if you need to control the public way. And additionally, if you require city services, there are a lot of other city agencies that we work with that provide services to the film productions, from the Chicago Police Department, providing police details or helping with traffic control and street lockups, to the electricians, to the fire department, to tow trucks that help relocate resident vehicles. We never tow cars to the pound, not on a film set if we can help it. We just relocate them in the vicinity. So the city has a lot of involvement in productions. But when in doubt, just shoot us an email or give us a call, and we can walk you through it. How do I obtain a permit? So first things first, permits are requested through our website. So if you've never requested a permit before, you need to go to our website, which is chicagofilmoffice.us, and you should review all of the information on our website, the instructions, code of conduct, some things that Tim will get into later. But there is a hyperlink that says create new account, new user. So you want to do that. That's under the permits for filming tab. and each application is reviewed by the Chicago Film Office prior to issuing a permit. We're never going to cancel or deny a permit or approve a permit without talking to you first. And a permit doesn't just give you carte blanche to do whatever you want in your permitted area. You don't get to rent a street out for the day. It's very specific in the details on your permit, and you are a guest in the area where you're filming. The code of conduct, as I mentioned, is something that Tim is going to go into in depth later on in this presentation. Basically, the code of conduct is set etiquette, how to behave in the neighborhood. It applies to all productions, whether it's a student film project or a major motion picture. Some of the major things to consider are noise or cleaning up after yourself, trash, that sort of thing, being courteous and making the neighbors, enjoy your company in their neighborhood rather than, calling us to complain about something. But Tim will jump into that later.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning with the code of conduct, really what we want is filming to be a positive experience for both the neighborhood and the community members. So, if we kind of come in just thinking we own the block and we can do what we want, and well, I've got this permit, and we really don't want that, because you might be there next week, someone else wants to film, maybe you're doing a series television show and you need to return to that location several times throughout the year. You really want to build a good relationship with them. And if they're turned off by one bad experience with one film crew who might have had some issues, that's going to kind of ruin it for everybody else. And one of the points is that we're kind of using the city as your backdrop. And so to do that, you want to respect that backdrop and that set that you're using, essentially.
Yeah, neighborhood buy-in is very important. It's not just your reputation on the line, it's the entire film community's reputation. Yeah. So on to the next one. How much does a permit cost? Great question. The rate is $250 per day per location. If you are an independent film or a student film, we do have another rate available that is $25 per day per location. You do have to qualify for that rate by sending in a request for the application, and we'll send it back to you and review it and let you know at that point whether we approve it or not. There are additional costs sometimes with the film permit. In addition to that, if you do require additional city services or anything of that nature, the $250 rate is just per day per location. Anything else is going to be extra. Fees are collected online only, and this is only after the permit has been issued. What is the time frame for obtaining a permit? Well, the minimal amount of time that we would turn a permit around is 3 full business days. During COVID, we've actually been asking for 5 full business days, and there are some, extraordinary circumstances. Productions will have, major traffic control or perhaps a complicated drone shoot or something that involves special effects or any kind of prop weapons, anything out of the ordinary. We would ask for about 2 weeks notice. And do not submit a permit until you have all of your information intact. We don't want anything on the application to say to be determined, and we don't want to try to avoid making a bunch of changes once you submit your application. What do I need to know before submitting? Well, you need to do a lot of planning. You need to plan your shoot day and scout your location surroundings. That means, look at the area, what's around there. Is there a senior citizen housing complex or a daycare facility or a school or anything of that nature where you might have to give extra notice in addition to, the community notification leaflet that is required, which is something that Tim will get into later. But, look around. You need to plan this out and be very detailed in your scout. If there are any other community partners around there that you need to give special notification to. If you have questions about any of this stuff, you can always reach out and call us. We want to discuss with your crew and transportation, the best logistical move. For example, where you're parking your trucks. You don't want to park them, out in front of a busy cafe if you can just park them on the other side of the street that has a vacant storefront. You don't want to park them in a traffic lane, or basically you don't want to park it in any spots that are not legal parking spots. Once in a while there's an exception. No film permit is the same. Each one is reviewed on a case-by-case basis, and we do offer some strategic guidance. But generally, you want to avoid any kind of fire plugs, disabled parking signs, valet zones, tow zones in general. And you can't park in driveways. That's for sure. You can never block a driveway.
Well, hey, John, I forgot to mention that we're going to take questions on Facebook comments and as well as the YouTube comments. And it looks like we already have one question. Says, if you have anything choreographed, like a music video, can that be considered B-roll as long as it's handheld with no placed equipment?
Yeah, music videos, we get a lot of questions for this as far as B-roll. And I would say 9 times out of 10, music videos are able to pull it off without getting a film permit, especially if there's no noise that's involved. So if you just have like playback that's not audible and the artist is lip syncing to it off a phone or a tiny little Bluetooth speaker, that is preferable, because if you have a few speakers out there and it's audible, then you're most likely going to need a permit. And so long as you do it at a certain time of the day where it's going to not be as intrusive, and you plan your shoot accordingly and do it somewhere where it won't be as intrusive location wise, you can probably do it with B-roll, but everything is a case-by-case basis, like I said. So I'm just basing this on the calls that I get for music videos. 9 times out of 10, they can do it B-roll, but every once in a while there is a shoot that does involve some permits and some hefty permits. Yeah. So just check in with us if there's any doubt.
Yeah. Well, and John, I think I'm going to add to this is I'm just wondering, where in the city would you permit that you can actually get this done? I think of the Chicago Park District, which is kind of a separate entity that we're going to get into a little bit later. They would require a permit even for B-roll. But oftentimes, actually, like this whole summer, I got a lot of requests for music videos, but always on the middle of a street. And so if you're doing that, yes, you have not, everything's handheld, you don't have anything touching the street, but you have a timed choreographed action happening in the middle of a street. So I would, so that sounds like there's more city services involved to make sure that we do that safely. The only other thing I could think of is a sidewalk. But even then, you're kind of doing more than just capturing B-roll of the cityscapes. Say, for example, is like kind of think of it as documenting it. So in this instance, I think we would have a lot of questions that would lead us into that more than likely you would need a permit to do it safely, I think.
Yeah, but you definitely need to call us about videos. All the time, music videos do require serious conversations about what your game plan is. Like I'm working on one right now, for example, where they actually have a location in a convenience store, but they want to know if they can film the talent walking out of the convenience store without getting a film permit. So in this particular case, so long as they're not interfering with any residents that are passing by on the sidewalk and all of their equipment, they can film the talent walking out of the convenience store without a film permit, so long as they're not setting up lights or anything on the sidewalk. No, prop weapons or any kind of images that might seem like a public safety threat or anything of that nature. But we're going to have a lot of questions for music videos, but there's always a strategic way to find the right location where you could probably do what you need to do if it's not in your budget to get a permit. But we keep a lot of these independent productions, with the $25 rate, there's a lot that is feasible to do.
Yeah. Well, and I think in just answering that question, it shows the point how everything has a lot of details to it. And these are questions we're going to ask somebody who calls in or emails into us or who submits a permit with a plan. This leads you to all the sorts of different questions we can kind of think of to, how is it going to affect other people in the city? How is it going to affect yourself, both in just convenience, but also safety? So I think this is a good example of that. We do have another question that came in before we actually get to me doing a live website. We love tech. Can you film on CTA buses or trains as long as it doesn't interfere with commuters?
So this is a great question as well. CTA actually has their own media permits for filming or any other kind of media. You do need to contact them directly. But let me reemphasize, we are the one-stop shop. So you should always call us first, and then we will connect you to the CTA. But the CTA, in addition to some of the other popular location requests that we'll also get into later. Their information is actually listed on our website. So in addition to creating your account, as I said, you should review all of the information, click around on all the tabs, read all the text if you can, because it'll be very helpful and informative for you. And the CTA permitting office is listed on our website with all their direct contact info. So most likely you're going to have to check with them. I mean, you can't just film people on the train, I'm guessing, without some kind of clearance from the CTA, but just check with them, check with us first, and then we'll connect you to them.
Yeah, a good example of how, well, since there are so many people in and around, that there's many people invested in certain properties and things like that. And the CTA is a government-owned property, but they have to also respect the other commuters. So we always want to get permission. So, you know, sometimes not always necessarily a permit, but permission is really what we're looking for. Worst thing that can happen in the middle of your shoot is you're filming inside of in a store, you think you have permission, and then they tell you got to leave. You've just lost your day. I think covering all your bases is always great. We were going to move on to the actual doing the permit. We got a lot of questions coming in here, John. The first one I'm reading is, you know, if I apply for a student priced permit, would I have to request that special student price every time that I apply for the location permit? I think I can answer that quickly in that I'm going to show you in a minute when you're actually applying, where you're going to show us what kind of production you are, whether you're a movie, a TV series, a web series. As a student, as long as you are enrolled in school, and the way we verify that is that your school issues you a certificate of insurance, you're just going to click that little student option. That's going to automatically give you the reduced student rate. We're obviously going to review it, make sure it's a valid insurance. But that's going to, as long as you click student, you're going to get that student rate. However, I'm going to say don't click student if you don't actually have a certificate of insurance from that school. I've gotten some people saying, I've applied to start school, you know, next year, so can I get a student rate? Unfortunately, no. It's the liability with that certificate of insurance, but we want to encourage students. So in that case, we would maybe be able to get you an independent student rate, which we will verify with the application to prove that that this isn't for commercial needs. A couple of these questions we're gonna possibly hit a little later. Can I film inside City Hall with a permit, John?
So everything is a case-by-case basis. You know, City Hall is somewhat public domain. However, there's a lot going on there, so we just have to double check with things. It kind of depends on the size and scope of your project, the time, the date, all that sort of thing. So as far as City Hall is concerned, it's not a hard no by any means. Nothing's a hard no, but you should always call and check with us. And we need to discuss, you know, your project and what, you know, your vision is for that before we can't uniformly approve, you know, City Hall permits.
Yeah, I would say inside City Hall is not really, you're going to have a permit injunction with that, but you're going to have a location agreement as well, kind of as if you were filming in a private house. You're going to have the permit for the city property side of it, but you're going to have an individual location agreement for that location.
Sometimes right of entry agreement that is also included when you're filming on any city-owned properties that can be very tedious and costly. So some of this stuff may not be within reach within certain student budgets, but again, like I said, call us. We need to talk about the size and the scope, because maybe you don't need a permit for what you want to do in City Hall, and we can just make an arrangement of some sort. It's, you know, I don't want to say it's exactly the same as outside on the sidewalk, but if you're just trying to get some handheld shots of something and you're not, you know, filming people close up, you know, it could be possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and this is going to bring us into, I think we just want, what John is really hammering home is to always contact us. As you're brainstorming, as you're looking for the right avenue to go about something. We do have a question here. If I'm not sure if I need a permit for a location, can I call the CFO and ask if this location requires a permit? Absolutely. I'm not even going to jump to John on that one. Absolutely. Give us a call or email us. I will say with COVID, as a lot of people are used to, we're all teleworking from home. We do check the voicemail. We try to check it regularly, call you back same day. But with an email, when you email filmoffice@cityofchicago.org, it's going to actually go to absolutely everybody in the film office. We're a small team, but it goes to everybody. And we can kind of review that, probably set up a call with you, just because one question always leads to another question. But we can certainly help you with that. We have another question. John, can I shoot in a park like Grant Park, for example, without a permit? If
Yeah,
it's
Grant Park and all of the Chicago Park District properties, not dissimilar to the CTA, they have their own media and film permit process, and their information is also listed on our website. So again, review all of the information on our website, but you should always call us first, and we can connect you to the Park District or help you with any kind of guidance that you may need.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll absolutely guide you. I think what we're learning is Chicago is a giant city, lots of entities, lots of ownerships of property, and a lot of different management companies, whether they be government or private. And there's certainly a lot that are requested routinely that we will know off the top of our heads. We try to list on our website, chicagofilmoffice.us, a lot of the standard questions. In fact, there is one part of our page that simply shows contact information for Grant Park, the Park District, Millennium Park, which is separate. Those are the commonly asked questions. So we'll put those right up there. But of course, if we don't know the answer, we always try to find out the answer. Knowledge is power to us, and especially as we're permitting outside of somewhere. We want to make sure your bases are covered as well. I'm going to ask just a couple more questions here, John. I have one. What's a good way to figure out if you need additional services, such as a police escort, if you're shooting in something like a one-way alley or something where there isn't much traffic on a day-to-day basis?
The best way to make that determination is by scheduling a phone call with us. If you have a project that requires something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, we need to talk it through with you beat by beat and figure it out. And that's where we really do offer some strategic guidance.
Yeah, I would definitely say with an answer like that, there's a lot of ins and outs with that. But you can generally think if you are impeding the public road where cars are, safety is a major concern. It almost doesn't matter if there's a lot or a little traffic. The point is you're on the street, and safety-wise, anything can happen. It takes just one car kind of going through your closed set to cause an issue, which is why we might ask something like that. So I definitely say before you fill out anything, before you put in a request, check with us because you might not need it. And then that's a cost savings to you that you don't need to spend. But we'll absolutely be honest with you if we think for safety-wise it needs to. I've got a couple other questions here. Some I might hit later. I have one question about, when you say permission, is verbal enough of a permission? I'm going to go ahead and say no. But that's up to you. We try not to get involved with the with private businesses and privately owned properties. That's between you and that property owner. So however you operate under that, but I would say liability-wise, you're spending a lot of money, even as a student film. If you've got people coming out volunteering their day, you've maybe had to rent some equipment or maybe buy the hard drives or put some cost into it. If something happens and you can't complete your shoot day, that's going to become an issue and you have to reschedule. So I would just advise you to cover your bases. The most you can have in writing, such as a permit, is really going to cover yourself. But it's kind of how you want to operate and don't try to do something without asking. Don't try to do anything as they call it guerrilla style. Don't try to run in somewhere and you're out before the problem arises. Because you might talk about public trespassing or something like that. But that's say you're filming inside an apartment, verbal agreement versus written permission. I'd say that's up to you, but we expect with all permits that you have a signed location agreement with the property that you're speaking of filming in. That's our expectation.
And one thing I want to add on that too, Tim, is that, just because you're filming on a private location, at a private location, there are still other city ordinances, and code of conduct always is something that you need to abide by. So, keep in mind noise ordinances. You can't be standing like in a window with a prop gun. I mean, you just have to, think about it as you're planning your shoot. So if you ever have any doubts about anything, even if you're filming at a private location, regarding noise or anything of that nature, you should reach out to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to make sure we cruise along. I'm going to hit just 2 more questions here. I do say permits apply to interior locations, ? I think I understand what you're asking. Is there are certain jurisdictions outside of Illinois or outside of Chicago. For example, I give the example I get a lot of calls from LA. They have their own permitting system with their own rules. In LA, you actually need a permit to film on private property because there's so much filming going on. You need a location agreement, but you also need a permit to film private property. As John covered earlier, you don't need a permit to film on private property. But the likelihood that you're spilling out onto public property, such as your equipment vehicles parking in the street outside, staging some equipment maybe on the sidewalk as you're coming in and out of your house or residence, that would require a permit because you are actually, on the public way, you're impeding the public way. So short answer, do you need a permit for interior locations? And I'm assuming you're talking private. No. And then last question, just so I can just
Tim, I just want to add on that too, that I forgot to mention, the code of conduct still applies. So, if there's going to be not necessarily music or anything like gunshots or anything, but even loud talking or arguing, like you have to keep noise in mind. So a community notification leaflet would still be helpful because remember, this is about long-term reputations and, the representation of the film community at large. Yeah, no,
that's absolutely a good point that I kind of forgot about. Definitely if we're talking independent student films, what comes up a lot? Prop weapons, a lot. You want to do like a Tarantino style something, I don't know. If you have something that causes noise or disturbance to people, even though you're on, private property, that's something that we want to make sure we're covered. We don't need to have somebody unaware of what you're doing and then be concerned about what you're doing, and then it has to be escalated. It's best to, like I keep saying, cover all your bases ahead of time. Let everybody know what you're doing, what your intention is, what your crew size is, everything like that, so we can think about everything with you, but as well as we might advise you, like John said, if there's no permit, maybe just notify the building, notify the property manager, notify maybe the neighboring buildings, all case by case.
And Tim, I hear about filming at low-income housing.
Yeah.
So that, this is not something that we get on a regular basis, but, a few times a year we get a request. It's usually for a larger production, like, a major television network or a huge movie or something that has the budget to explore filming in low-income housing. No film permit is the same. It all depends on the size and the scope and what you're trying to do, where exactly you want to be positioned. But just call us. The CHA, would have to issue that permit. It's not going to come from our office directly. But, it's most likely going to require a larger budget to get into the CHA.
Yeah, that's government property, and so more agreements on top of there. Okay, let me see here. John, are we better? I'm gonna read one more question, but are we ready to move on?
I think I see a question about FAA Part 107. It all depends. The FAA polices all drones, but the city does have an ordinance. You should always call us. We actually have a drone request form and an application process that may or may not entail a fee, but it's more about sharing information with first responders so that they know that it's a legitimate flight with a legitimate pilot who is following all the rules. If you launch or land on city property, from city property, it will most likely need to be a film permit. However, if you're launching from a private location, so long as you have a location agreement, which we will need to see, you're not going to get hit with a fee. What we do ask for some information on this drone request form. We'll have to send back a copy of your license, your waiver, registration, and that sort of thing. But just call us if you have any questions. We offer guidance for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think you talking about drones has, we have another question about drones, but I do think we might hit those a little later in the presentation. So I'm going to hold off on those. I will answer this next question because this is actually going to lead into permitting here. Would it be best to have an overall permit for the whole production, or does that type of permit even exist, or do you have to set up a permit for each specific location? It is a very specific permit per location, per place. Even on the same day, if you're filming, in one neighborhood, and then later in the day you're filming in another neighborhood, those are two different permits because they're not location-wise touching each other. Sometimes people might refer to it as like a grid permit if you're walking around and filming within so many square blocks. Again, not something we in Chicago have. We can talk to you about alternative solutions to having to have a permit for every 15-minute increment you're in. Maybe it'll count as B-roll. We'd have to talk to you. But no, there is one permit per one location, and you do have to set that up for every location you're going to be at. You might have one permit that covers multiple days, as long as the location parameters don't change. But it is one permit per location that can just extend out to days. All right. So John, I'm going to kick off. I might answer some more questions as I kind of go through this. I'm going to put in a permit real time. I'm going to have John here just to answer any questions I might have as we go through this, and he'll also monitor the questions.
Take it away.
Yeah, cool. So let's say you've done everything John's done. You've scouted your location. You know where you want to be. You've talked to your crew. You know your transportation vehicles. You need to get those vehicles close for safe load-in. Okay? So real easy. We're going to go to chicagofilmoffice.us. It's a short link. It is going to bring you to our website here, Chicago Film Office. We are a part of the city of Chicago. We are a government agency, so this is like a site within a site. But right here, a lot of everything we're covering here today pretty much is going to be on this website in one place or the other. Right from the get-go, we're going to see this banner for the COVID-19 update. We're not going to cover COVID rules in this tutorial here, but it's definitely something that we expect people are going to abide by. We have the Restore Illinois Film Production Guidelines, the City of Chicago's Be Safe Film and Television Production Guidelines, and everything's always tailored to your production, so definitely commercials, as they operate a little differently. We also ask that they refer to the Association of Independent Commercial Producers recommendations. These are things that multi-pages really lays out how many people per location, best way to be safe, best practices from hair and makeup to health safety checks, all that. It's really in depth. This can be a whole nother presentation. But right there in the banner, we want to advise you of that. And that is something you check off when you apply for a permit, that you understand the COVID-19 guidelines for filming and that you'll abide. And I'll just give you the short of it. It's all about being safe. Don't go to work when you're sick. Don't go to work if you're feeling bad. Just be safe is always the number one. People want to really, really break down those rules. So right here on the site, we've got broken down in two different ways, either for filmmakers or for film lovers. For film lovers, Chicago has had movies here for years and years and years and years. Big studios, Charlie Chaplin's SNA Studios, all have been here. We're going to go for filmmakers. This is our active, what we're looking for. I do want to show you for students, because I do feel a lot of people on this call are either going to be students or independent first-time filmmakers. This, again, it's going to repeat a lot of the information we talked about. How to obtain a permit, when do you need a permit, when do you not need a permit, and all about contacting us. We can't stress that enough. You can always call or email us, and we'll respond. We want to get you those answers. We want to encourage filming in Chicago. So we really want to support the arts. We also have a student film packet here that we've had up here for a number of years. It's really going to break down exactly the same steps John and I are talking about today, as well as going to be on this presentation. And all this information is on our site. So I'm going to go right back to our main homepage for filmmakers. We do have, city services and rates, kind of breaks down all the kind of money numbers, everything like that. I do want to point that out. But we're going to go right to permits for filming. Okay. Right here on our site, John, is that showing up okay there? So right here, again, the COVID-19 update banner, it's just very important during these times to be as absolutely safe as possible. Okay, we break down a little bit more. Again, there's alternate jurisdictions. You don't need it for general B-roll filming. Another link just back to that student film page. All that's there. But what we do is we break down the permitting steps into 4 easy steps. Okay, so there's the online permit application plus the backup documents you need. So what I'm going to do to go through this actually is I'm going to work on the documents first, because I think then we'll talk about how you're planning your location. And then we're going to go right online and we're actually going to plug this in. So the very first thing I do want to mention, the code of conduct. John mentioned it earlier. That link right there brings you right to our code of conduct. 2-page document. It's not like the COVID-19 rules and guidelines, regulations. It should be pretty simple. The first thing it's going to talk about is this notification of the neighborhood. It's something to note that, as we keep stressing, is that we want to mitigate issues with overlapping community partners. Excuse me, with homes, making sure people can come to and from their homes, that they're not put off by it. Making sure that if you're near businesses, you leaflet those businesses. Businesses don't want to lose business because you are blocking people's way into their stores. People want to be able to come to and from their homes without disruption. So by having this notification leaflet, the expectation is that you're going to leaflet the affected area at least 2 days prior to your arrival of any parking restrictions, or prior to your filming date. We expect you to knock on doors, hand them this leaflet, explain what you're doing there. Let me show you what that leaflet looks like. This is our sample leaflet on our page right here. We try to make it nice, big, and bold because we're going to send this all over the place. We're going to notify your local ward office of your filming so that they can also answer any questions that their constituents might call in and ask them. This is actually going to be printed and handed to people in the affected area by you, the production company. You might have your PA doing it. You might be doing it yourself if you're independent. And I think we'll also help advise you on exactly what the scope is that you need to leaflet. Let's say you're just taking a few parking spots on a residential street. Let's hit the few surrounding houses around there, maybe the whole block. You're doing something larger, a giant movie, and you're affecting a few blocks. Well, we're going to have to branch out a few more blocks because everyone's going to be affected, whether they're on that block or not, by your filming. So we break it right down here. We want your production company name. If you're a student, you can say, a student of, say, Columbia College. We'll be filming scenes for, what are you doing? Are you doing a movie? Are you doing a commercial? Are you doing a short project, a short film? And what's the title of it right there? Big and bold, we have your days. If you're at one location for multiple days with the same parameters, it might say Monday, January 1st. It might say through Wednesday, January 3rd. Right, big and bold, people want to know these bits of information. So part of your permit, if you request parking, is we're going to post no parking tow zones. That's the city's paper, no parking tow zones. We're going to post those up for you. Again, we have to post them up to at least 48 hours prior to the start of your filming. Have to give people ample notification. We don't want any surprises from anybody. We don't want any surprises from you, and the neighborhood doesn't want any surprises from all of us. Okay, we're going to break it down nice and easy. What are the time parameters? What is it? We're putting it in plain English here. The east side of LaSalle from Washington to Randolph. If I live near that area, I should pretty easily identify exactly where I can or cannot park between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Okay, a couple other things to note. If you're just parking and you're going into a store, you don't need to note much else past here. But if you are doing street closures, If you have the option of alternative parking, which we sometimes require of the larger productions, if you're disrupting a neighborhood, we require that you've secured some sort of alternative parking. If you're going to be doing special effects, anything with smoke, anything with prop weapons, anything that would cause concern, even also filming on the sidewalk is something that I'll have people add in on this leaflet. You might not want to disclose too much about your project, but honestly, the more you disclose, the more upfront you are. If there's any surprises, people don't like surprises. I don't like surprises. If there's construction on my street and they have, that they're going to film on a certain day, I want them to completely work within those parameters, and I'm upset when it's beyond that. If they suddenly close my street to bring in a crane and that wasn't on their permit, I'm a little upset. We want 2 contacts for your production: location manager, on-site coordinator, production coordinator, producer. The reason we want that is we can, of course, answer questions to any constituents that call into us, but you will actually know the information, should, right at your fingertips, have the information about your shoot. And also, oftentimes the questions might just be like, hey, I'm at this business at the corner. I want to make sure that my business is going to stay open. And then you can answer those questions. Oh, absolutely. We're only going to be filming over here. People can still go around us or what have you. So it's best if they call you. We have our number here as well, because of course we answer questions from residents, from businesses every day. But a lot of issues can just be mitigated by what we'll consider the 2 private parties: yourselves and the businesses or the homeowners or the residents. I do see one question real quick. The filming notice has to be handed to people in the affected area 48 hours prior to shooting. Yes. If you want to make sure that people have enough time to respond to your notice. If they get something in an evening and your parking starts 7 a.m. the next day, that's not enough time for them to kind of accommodate your parking request. So it is, the expectation is 2 days prior to filming at least. If you can, do it 3 days, great. Any more than that, they're going to kind of forget the details, and they won't kind of sync it up with that you're actually coming here Monday, January 1st. So yes, 2 days to notify, and it is your responsibility as the student, the production company, the location manager, to leaflet and notify people in the affected area. Okay? Yeah.
Tim, can I say something real quick on that? It's also a good time. You should do it before noon, 48 hours before your shoot date, because you should also be checking to make sure that the no parking signs have been hung by the city. Because if we don't receive notice 48 hours prior to that, we're not going to be able to help you. So you want to scout your location at least a couple times during pre-production before your shoot day. Google Maps is not accurate as far as scouting locations is concerned. There might be an active construction site, or it might have been, there might be street resurfacing or something going on there. So you should always scout your location a couple times before the shoot day, including 48 hours beforehand, perhaps when you're distributing this community notification leaflet.
Yeah, no, excellent point. As in any film production, there's a lot of moving parts, and you're going to want to make sure you walk all these moving parts down along the line. We're going to work closely with you, but we're expecting that you're there. The big annoyance is someone shows up on their film day, says no, they might say no signs are up. I might get a call from a resident who says, I had no idea this was happening, and now they're telling me I have to move. We always want to, mitigate these issues early. And so definitely with all things with production, you're going to want to walk your production through all these steps, and you're going to want to double check that everything's happening. You can know we're doing our thing, but it doesn't mean there might not be overlap one way or the other. Some angry citizen cut them down because they're not permanent signs. I'm not saying that happens, but it can. Yes. So, all right. So that's the leaflet. That is all part of our code of conduct that you are expected to notify people. Okay. Worth noting, a lot of this is stuff that we've talked about. I want you guys to read this through on yourself. It's an easy document, but what do the parking restrictions mean? Where can I park? Our expectation of not holding up traffic or pedestrians too long. Everything you need to keep. There's a lot of businesses in Chicago, and there's a lot of overlapping people and things, and everybody needs to coexist. You're never just owning your permit area. You're still cohabitating with everybody there. Keep noise low. I wish I can tell some of the construction guys across the street from me that 9 a.m., no loud noise before 9 a.m. They love jackhammers at 7 a.m. But as long as I don't see it from film productions, that's all I need. Private property, again, we expect that you contact private property people, and a permit doesn't give you the permission just to walk onto somebody's yard if you have permission for the street and the sidewalk. It doesn't include that private property. Trash. Definitely something as a freelancer, often said on sets, leave your location cleaner than how you found it. That's just going to give a positive experience for everybody. You can't, also private property, you can't just cut trees, cut bushes as you see or want. All things have to be mitigated ahead of time. And etiquette. Again, you don't own the street. You don't own the sidewalk. You can't yell at somebody for leave. You are asking politely to cohabitate with everybody. So just etiquette, be nice, be courteous, same thing that you would want from them. And absolutely, this is our expectation for all filming, from your student films to your indie films, all the way up to the giant movies or the Chicago shows that film all the time. They all operate under these same expectations. Anything else, John, before I move on? You're on mute, but I think we're good.
Sorry. Yeah. Who do I have to hand the notice to directly? You're not handing it to people walking down the street. You're delivering it to residences and businesses that are going to be immediately affected by your shoot. So if you're parking trucks on the east side of the street out in front of a bunch of stores, you namely need to hit those stores where you're going to be parking your trucks. Every film permit is different, so you should check in with us. Sometimes there are condo associations or property management companies that need to receive the leaflet. You might actually have to have a conversation with these people. It's a little tricky during COVID, so we might be able to help you get an email address or something of that nature. But just check in with us if you have any questions. But you're just getting the people that are immediately affected by it. And you're not really supposed to post, flyers and light poles and stuff. People do it. It helps with the notification, but like Tim said, you got to leave that set cleaner than the way you found it. So when you wrap your film set for the day, not only are you removing any leaflets that still might be hanging or blowing around, but you're also taking down your no parking signs that we hung for you and discarded them.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning, you're not allowed to put these leaflets in mailboxes. That's like a federal law. No mailboxes. Knock on the doors. Engage the residents. Maybe if you need to slip it in a door handle or something, but don't put it in mailboxes. Just something to know. Okay, so moving on. So we've covered. We have some documents we have to create for this permit. We've covered the leaflet, which is part of our code of conduct. The next big thing is the city services request form. This right here is a PDF right here. I don't need a PDF editor. I can type, I can do what I need with it. You can see that this has been updated for COVID. So we've added some questions that we want to just be aware of the personnel size and scope. And you're also checking off this little box that I have read and agreed and abide to this COVID-19 city and state film production guidelines. Okay, that's very important. Again, I'm not going to walk everybody through those guidelines every time. I'll answer any questions you have, but I'm not going to sit there with a checklist of 50 things asking if you covered all your bases. Okay, the expectation is that you understand those rules, that you will work within those rules. If you have any specific questions, we're certainly here for you. And there have been lots of presentations on them online recently about these rules, a lot of symposiums with the film community. Just keep an eye out for those. So I actually went ahead and filled one out because this is going to be the permit I'm going to put in. Okay, so I want to just a little step-by-step going through this because some people will get a little confused. So first one here, the CDOT permit reference number. As soon as you start putting in a permit, it's going to give you a permit number. Whether it's completed or not, it assigns a number. It's already part of the system. So you can actually put this right in. You know, this could be the last thing you put in as soon as you start putting in your permit. So I want to film something, about 20 crew. I've read and abide by the guidelines. This is actually not a still. I am a student here. So all I need to do is put a little checkbox here. What you're going to notice is the way we've laid out our city services request form is a lot like the permit system. We try to use the same language, the same flow, just so it's once you fill it out in one, it's almost plug and play into the next one. And I understand that some people might sometimes be like, well, I'm about to enter all this online. Why do I need to make this form too? It's the fact that this form is actually being read by a human instead of a computer that gets glitchy, and who knows what happens with tech. So I'm a student. I'm just going to put a little X there, indicate it one way or the other. Typing is always better than handwriting, just because I have terrible handwriting, and most people do too. So I want to give myself enough time. So today's the 7th. I'm filming on the 20th. That gives me about 13 days. That's 2 weeks as we recommend for a student to put in this. So I want to film on Tuesday the 20th. My project, I came up with it, Tony's Opera. It's going to be the best opera ever. Now, because I'm a student, right here you would put your company name. So if you're actually, you know, part of a production company, that's your production company name, or your school. Right here, Chicago Film School. So this will actually be my company, or Chicago Film School right there. We need to know what school you're part of. We want to know what school you're part of if you check off this student box. Okay, that's why there's a little asterisk there. Billing address. This is either your company's billing address. Okay, if you've worked in the business, you're used to that. Everything is operated under the company. You should know your company's billing address and where it's going. If you are a student, this would be your own address right here. Your own address, Chicago, Illinois, right there. Here's me. You know, I'm the one actually applying for this permit, but I'm also going to be the one handling the permit, responsible for it. Tim Olson. Here's my city email address. Here's our office line. I don't have a cell phone. I'm not high enough up on the totem pole. So that's just the billing. That's out of the way. Let's actually talk about where we want to film, okay? So I have chosen the Walgreens at 1650 West Chicago. Again, you're not permitting to film in the Walgreens. We're permitting to film to be outside of the Walgreens. I have a location agreement with Walgreens. I've talked to them. I have a location. They've signed. Everything's squared away. We know we're going to film there and we're safe. Project description. This is a little bit more just for reference between us and you. Some people put it in different ways. I'm doing kind of like a feature film, so it helps me to know that this is scene 7. It helps to have a little description of what the scene is. So this is Tony buys a lotto ticket. You can also put that this is either interior or exterior. If I in the film office am reviewing this and I see exterior, I'm going to wonder if you're actually filming on the sidewalk. And I just wrote student film in there, just a little extra there. Street closure. I'm going to say no. I often get a lot of people don't know when they need a street closure or not, so they just say, yes, full closure on Clark Street, and, the middle of Wrigleyville. Everything has to be reviewed. Just understand that a street closure is quickest thing is going to have additional costs, not in the permit, but like John and I have always talked about, the police, the safety, the squad cars, there's more cost in those than you're maybe willing to do. And all of these things definitely need to be mitigated. So we see no street closure here. I know, next I'm going to talk about more what I need, but it's like, okay, this might be a little bit more manageable permit. If I see intermediate or full, I'm going to call you and say, what is your full plan? I want to know everything. I want to know your traffic reroute. I want to know all your things. So no closure. For most of our student and indies, you're going to be no closure. If you've never put in a permit for a closure before, you're going to want to contact us first. Let us know what you want, what your intention is. Let's walk you through it. But really all I'm looking for is parking. I have a couple of trucks that I want to be able to easily load in and out of Walgreens. So I've got like my date and time right here. A date starts at 6 a.m., same date ends at 8 p.m. We make it, real easy that there's no confusion. Oh, well, my 6 a.m. meant to be my end time. And we try to do this so it's as clear as possible. And then I write, plain English, I want the north side of West Chicago Avenue from Ashland Avenue to Paulina Street, okay? I went to that location, I looked at it, I looked what was there, I looked what was around, I know where the bus zones are, I know that mostly it's metered spots there. And when I permit there, I can park at the metered spots, I can't take bus zones, I cannot take loading zones, I can't block any driveways. So those are questions we're going to ask you. When we say you want the north side of Chicago, we're going to double check that you know where exactly you can and cannot park. But I know my vehicles, I know where I want, I know what I need it. Worth mentioning that this is a very easy from one street to another street. Let's say I'm a student. This is 99% of the time I'm a student. I want to film on a residential street. I'm filming, at my friend's house. It's a house, a residential street, and I don't need the whole street. I don't even need all of one side, say the east, the west, the north, or the south side. Then, what you can also put here is, say the west side of, of Chicago from, 1620 West Chicago, to 1660 West Chicago. You can get very specific with these addresses, and oftentimes if we talk to you and you ask for an entire street and we find out you have 3 vehicles, we're going to narrow that down. Let's make the least disturbance to the neighborhood. Plus, if you saw your neighborhood was taken up for parking and you saw 3 vehicles there and all these empty spots, you'd probably be a little upset too. So be as descriptive as you can in here. The street names, what side, what number range, always be as explicit as possible. Okay.
For picture, let us know that. If it's for picture, we need to know that.
Yeah, that is a very good point. Definitely something noting if you are filming on the street and you're not taking all the spots, we want to know. Otherwise, we might take away all your, ask for you to reduce all your parking, and you never mentioned that you actually just need it clear for picture. Below this, again, for most students in Indies, not going to use this for most of the time, but you may. Chicago Police. How many sergeants, how many officers, how many squad cars, where do they report, what day and time do they report? Don't just say at call. That means nothing. We want to be very specific so that there's no confusion, because your permit might start at 6, but you don't need your officers until noon. The price breakdown for all of those is on our website. We try to be as explicit as possible. But again, you're generally not going to need this unless you are doing some sort of intermittent traffic control, which we will discuss with you. But it's worth noting with traffic control, you need to know where all the traffic's coming from, ins and outs. And people are like, I just need one officer because I'm doing the street. It's like, well, you got a street coming this way. You have other side of traffic coming this way. You have an alley that way. It's all for safety of both your crew, the general public, and for our officers. We just want safety for everybody. That's really what it's about. Tow truck. Again, we do everything in our power not to tow. This includes the Chicago shows, the movies, all that. They do everything in their power not to tow. Nothing is going to upset a citizen more than if you tow. It's worth noting, as John mentioned earlier, your car is not necessarily brought down to the city pound. It's usually moved around the block to a legal safe spot. However, there is a ticket for that individual associated, so it doesn't make anybody happy. By having our no parking signs up, by walking around with your notification leaflets, everyone's aware. You should never have to tow because everyone's aware and knows what's going on. Without doing a notification leaflet, you might have a number of people who park there just because they might have just chosen to ignore the no parking signs. But generally, we try not to tow. And also, there is a cost associated with scheduling a tow for you. So even though there's a ticket on the car, there's a cost to you. Let's save you costs. No tow. You're a student independent. That's what I'm tailoring to in this conversation. Let's not tow. Special effects, pyrotechnics. Again, this should be something we should know about before you actually apply for a permit. This could be smoke. This could be prop weapons. This could be anything that makes a loud noise, a loud light, or something like that. Hopefully, if I ever got a city services request form that had that on there, we already know what it is and we've already spoken to you. Okay. So I've completed this just for parking on Chicago Avenue from one street to one street. Okay. So this is ready to go. I've got my leaflet ready to go. Let's see what else we need. We do have one question in this that I just noticed about getting permission from in the area of the alderman to film. When you send us that notification leaflet, we actually email that to your local alderman. Your local alderman's office is great. I think, you know, residents should definitely know who their aldermen are, and they should be connected, and they work for the people. But we'll do that notification for you to the alderman.
Yeah, one-stop shop. You really shouldn't be calling anybody except for us unless we instruct you to.
Correct. Exactly. Thank you, John. So the last form I'm going to need, 3 forms. We got the leaflet. We got the city services request form. Certificate of insurance. I'm not going to go too in depth with this. If you're getting your certificate of insurance from your school, they know what we need. You need this thing called an additional insured. Your list is insured, your company's listed on it, but every time you rent things from a vendor or rent a location or something like that, like your location agreement, and you have insurance, you're going to want that homeowner's name on it. For us and any permits, you need the city of Chicago as additionally insured on that permit. These minimum general liability requirements, pretty standard. We'll review and make sure they're all good. Just know if you're getting it from your school, all insurance generally looks the same. All forms look the same. I've seen it if I had it up. It's all about the same. But City of Chicago would be listed right down here. You get that from your insurance company or your production company or your school. So I won't go into that too much. But you want City of Chicago. And we've talked about the leaflet. So we've prepped our documents. Now for the fun stuff, actually completing a permit online. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just click this complete a permit online. You're going to see I come to a different web page. We are part of the City of Chicago. This permit web portal is for all sorts of permits, not just filming permits. This is for construction companies, utility digging. This is for tons of permits you might need with the city. There's so many I wouldn't even know what they all are. But you need to make yourself a user right here. You're gonna register for a new account. Now I'm not gonna do this live because it takes them having to verify you and email you, and you click a link and it opens it up. But we've all just about completed registering online. I'm gonna just show you a couple screen grabs I do. You know, they sent me an email, I verified, it then you set up a user account, password should be pretty standard for people, your contact information. Once again, this is your contact information. I want to know who you are, not your company. I want to know, your phone number. We need to have you in the system. Okay. There is an additional step of adding a company. If I work for one company all the time, I will associate them. Like I associated myself with Chicago Film Office here. If you're unsure at the time, you can go ahead and skip this up and just you're as an individual personal. You also might be a freelancer who is permitting for all sorts of different companies all the time. You can always input that later. This just saves you a step because this is more tailored for seamless for construction companies where they might be putting in several permits through the same company all the time. And there's lots of different people associated with that. A whole other process, but that's what this is built for. You can see I went ahead and added myself to the Chicago Film Office. Request got sent to my administrator, but it saves all that information right there. So that's what it looks like. Okay. So I made myself, get my screen back up. So I made myself my own user, Chicago Film Office. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. This is what we call our home dashboard. Okay. All of my permits that I work on, let's say I'm working on a movie and I've got a lot of permits, they're all going to show up here. I see one is in review. I see another one is incomplete. I didn't actually click all the steps, but it'll save all my information as I've gone along. And it kind of tells me right away what I still need to do. I will mention that the website is a little slow. There are a lot of users. There are a lot of people on it. It's not you. It's going to be slow for me here, but it's all going to work. Knock on wood, I haven't had it crash yet. So I can edit an application or whatever I need to do here. You know, I can look at my account, change my password, see what I've paid for, all sorts of nice utilities that I'm not even going to walk through here because you can kind of click and figure it out for the most part. So, but we're going to go right here to new permit application. You're going to see you can do dig ticket, hit report, joint meet. Again, these are other things that aren't really going to concern filming. Okay, so all you need to concern yourself for is permit application. I'm going to click that and I see my little wheels spinning. So I know it's working. It does take a moment, which is perfectly all right. All right. Once again, I am working on the show Tony's Opera. So I'm gonna continue with that. Let's see it go. I do see the question for student films, at what point do you need the COI? For people who don't know what a COI is, that's a certificate of insurance. You cannot be issued a permit without a certificate of insurance. You can submit an application, you can skip that step and it'll still let you complete it. The first thing we're going to say is, where's your COI? That needs to be part of a permit in order to be approved. It is worth noting that because you can always go back and do things, as long as you let us know, I'm just waiting on my school for the COI. We'll continue to talk to you about the rest of your permit. We can't actually issue it to you though without that certificate of insurance, worth noting. So right here, application type, you can see that part of the public, there's lots of different permits. As John said, farmers markets, the Department of Cultural Affairs manages those, festivals and athletic permits. It should be pretty clear that you want filming permits. I'm going to go ahead and click that. Sometimes we get questions of, hey, I'm doing this event and I'm filming it, so do I need a film permit or do I need a special events permit? The question always comes down to, what's the final product? Is it the film or is it the event? 9 times out of 10, when we get a question like that, you're actually putting on an event and you're just filming the event for sake later. But if you weren't able to film it, would you still throw the event? If the answer is yes, that's a special events permit. If you're saying, no, this is all make-believe, this is all a fake block party so that I can film it, then that would be a film permit. Something to know. So right here, basic information. What's my event project name? I've already talked about, it's Tony's Opera. It might be your short film. It might be the title of that. Kind of arbitrary, but it means that we all know we're talking about the thing. What's my start date? Again, this is just the start date of this individual permit. I might be filming more than just October 10th. I might be filming that whole week, but I'm just putting in that for this one permit. At this point, this is all isolated to one permit. What's my description of the event? Again, I can pretty much copy and paste from the city services request form, which is why I filled this out first, just to make this process so much easier, okay? So there's my description of the event. It's a student film. It's scene 7. I'm interior, exterior. Next question, we're already on 3. We're cruising through this. Add the applicant. You might be like, why am I adding the applicant? I'm applying. Well, there's the individual, but there's also the company. Again, if you're working for another company, you're going to add them as an applicant. If you're doing this as an individual, which we'll get into individual, that would be something different. So I'm going to add applicant. I'm going to go with my company. And one question we always have is, how do I add someone new? The one thing is you always need to search first because it wants to eliminate duplicates. So it's always going to force you to search for your company first. Then you can go ahead and add new contact if you don't have your contact in here. I actually forgot to mention that students is an interesting way you can go about it. There might be a couple of ways you might add the applicant. What I would suggest is, let me actually show real quick what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to remove that applicant. This is the certificate. The applicant is the certificate holder. So if it's your company, your certificate of insurance is from your company. You want that company name as the applicant. And I got an error, but that's okay because it saves everything, which is great. So let's see here. It's just going to load up here for a second. Let's just wait on this. We've done this rehearsal about 5 times, and I have not received an error yet. I did knock on wood.
Tim, I got a couple questions I could knock out while we're waiting.
Yeah, go for it.
The question is, do we have to join the local union 476, and do we have to be inside the production Bible? The answer to both of those questions is no. We have another question. Are there any Chicago landmarks that cannot be used in an indie film? Well, Chicago landmark, that's a very specific classification. But if you're referring to like popular spots in Chicago for film, like the Sears Tower or the Bean or anything of that nature, yeah, you should always check with us. Most of those are private properties, or they're privately managed. They have copyrights and that sort of thing. As far as B-roll is concerned, a general rule of thumb is that general cityscapes and skyline growth. If you focus on a particular property, if it's, you know, part of your subject or your storyline and you speak to it, then you're going to need some kind of clearance for that. But just check with us first.
Very cool. Well, we'll take another question at the next wait for the internet. So I just want to give one example if you're a student. What we like is, because we're issuing it to you because Columbia, you know, a school might be huge, but it's really the school who's issuing the certificate of insurance. What our recommendation here is, so I search for Columbia College. Here's their information. I can select them, but I want to tailor it to myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter an applicant as an individual. And then what I would do, and I'm just using Columbia College just because, no preference there. I'm going to use Columbia College as the first name, and then, you know, I'm going to add myself as the last name. So when I see on a permit, it's going to be issued to Columbia College, but I know it's Tim Olson who's on it. When you are getting your certificate of insurance, not every school is the same. Some will just, you know, it'll be a more blanket certificate of insurance. I think it's Columbia that gives you a very specific permit. They match a certificate of insurance. They match that certificate of insurance with the language exactly like the permit will be. This date, this time, to this individual, which is why we would do it like this. You would then add your own personal information right in here because we want to be able to find you. So that's our recommendation for college students. Not saying that you might not figure out another way to input your information. We will always find you, and I will show you that in a moment. But I'm going to go ahead and add my Chicago Film Office right back in here. Let me add this in real quick. And so there we go. There's my work address and my phone number, and I'm going to select it. It's thinking. Always make sure you check the kind of just, you know, your internet's waiting, your little wheel's spinning. Okay, so I've added my applicant as my company or my school with my name. I'm going to click next, and that's going to pop up. Okay, so that's why we do a company and yourself, because the next thing is who's your primary production contact. We've updated that language. It used to say emergency contact information, and someone would put their mom. That doesn't help in a permit situation. What we want to do is this information you're typing in is actually going to appear on the permit. Same thing that you would expect that you can go, that, you know, a building inspector can show up to a building and check the permit and know who's liable for it. Same kind of thing with a film permit. It's going to be the company's information, but either yourself, your location manager, your producer, whoever is really going to be able to mitigate issues with that permit or be able to answer questions about that permit. I would expect with a student that it's you who can answer questions about this. So you're going to see both the company and yourself. So there's the applicant, but then the primary contact. Something worth knowing how those are. Again, the language can always sometimes get a little confusing, but that's why it kind of helps. So I'm going to go ahead and start fresh because I got an error. Just to kind of speed ourselves along, I opened up a pending permit. So right here, so now they know everything about the company, they know everything about us. Now they want to know everything that's this address information about where and how we're filming. So the first thing is to add your location information. You're going to add it with a little window. Now this I really kind of need to explain. It's not intuitive, and I understand that. Once you know it, it is intuitive. So what it's looking for is, because it's a computer, it wants you to take this address information and break it up into its components. So let's just say I don't understand. So I know it's Chicago Avenue. And so it's Chicago Avenue, right? Street closure. Again, same thing like the city services request form, full street closure, intermittent traffic closure, sidewalk closure. I don't need to use that too much. This is a no street closure. Okay, so I know that. So I know it's west. I know it's West Chicago. So it must be the numbers it's asking me for. So on my city services request form, I was looking for Ashland to Paulina. We could do a whole nother presentation on how the Chicago grid system is laid out and how the numbers work. We do have a street guide, real old school, available on our website. If you're unfamiliar with the grid system, every street has kind of a coordinate XY axis associated with it. So I was saying with Walgreens, we're at 1650. I know Paulina is 1700, and Ashland is 1600. So I'm going to flip that actually just for clarity. So what we're looking for is Chicago Avenue from the address 1700 to 1600. If you're unsure how to find an address, Google Maps, if you literally right click and say what's here, it gives you the exact address of where you are. So you can go what's from here to here. Again, it's once you understand the grid system, it makes a lot of sense. If you've never worked with it before, this is number one place where you're going to get held up. How to exactly input these numbers of where you're looking for. If you're scouting your location and you're at the house, it's a lot easier. You look at this house to that house is where I want parking. So I want, you know, from 1602 to 1608. Very easy. If you're talking, I know from this street to that street, you might get a little confused. Street Guide tells you exactly what every street is numbered at, and it makes it real easy for you to do that. So that's what it means in the from and the to, the direction and that. So now I've told the computer that I want that block of Chicago, but again, I'm going to put it, what are the parameters? I'm going to put it in plain English again, right here, copy and paste, the details of the requested parking parameters. Some people have typed in like, looking to park 2 trucks. Some people have said like, you know, no parking, and that's all they write in. We basically, again, kind of want your plain English, and this will show up on the permit. So I'm looking for parking for production vehicles. That's what I'm looking for. I want to park my production vehicles on the north side of West Chicago from North Ashland to North Paulina. A lot of people will write no parking and then the parameters. Sometimes that gets a little confusing when someone else is reading your permit. Police come check on you. What you doing? I have a permit. Well, it says you can't park here. You need to designate that it's available for you to park there. That's why we had that parking for production vehicles. So I'm going to add this. What it's going to do is it's taken in everything and it shows me on a map what I'm talking about. And this looks correct to me. This is exactly what I'm looking for. It doesn't show the north or south side of the street, but that's why we type it in. You know, I'm looking for the north side of Chicago Avenue from here to here. But that's how the number system works. If I click that, it would open another window with a larger map for me. If I type something wrong or this line suddenly is jutting out 2 miles, I know I've typed something in wrong. I can re-enter it or I can cancel it. On a permit, you might also be looking for multiple streets. So this is right here. You would just add another location. You go street by street by street. Okay. Now, luckily, I've already typed all this in. Again, I'm doing it as if I'm a student. If you are commercial, corporate media, film, music video, still, TV, or web series, it doesn't affect any sort of rates with the permit. It's all the same. We just like to kind of know what type of production you're doing. The only one that's different is student. That's the only one that will automatically associate that lower student rate. But again, we have to verify that your certificate of insurance comes from your school. You might have the question, if I'm an independent production and I want the independent rate, well, because that's something we would manually enter on our end based on your application, you would still just choose whichever project you're doing as long as you don't choose student. Can't have you choose student if you're not a student. If you're a student, we want to know the school. So now I'm looking at my parking start time and end time. It is a little odd how they make you put it in, but you can also type it in. I'm just going to double check. Yeah, I said 6 a.m. Oh, I said to 8 p.m. here. So I'm just going to go ahead, 8 p.m. there. It asks me again the same questions that are in the city services request form. Any special effects? None. What's your landmark or building name? This could be, you know, your Walgreens. You could say private residence. It's just a reference point. It could be Willis Tower. Just some sort of reference point of where you're actually going to be. And will there be any vehicular traffic interruption? Again, if you're one of the bigger shows, you're doing full street closures, or we've negotiated it, we'll have to be very clear about the language we type in here. But 9 times out of 10 for who, you know, we're building this workshop for today, your answer is going to be none. Okay. So again, why I build the city services request form first, so I can easily just copy and paste this information in. Once I'm actually building the permit, it should just be pretty clear. So just waiting on the internet. I know my internet's fast. If you see me looking back and forth, it's because I'm a big computer nerd with 2 monitors. Okay, so right here, we've completed everything with the permit. Now it just needs this backup information. These links link to exactly what we have on our website. Your city services request form, a sample of the certificate of insurance, and the notification leaflet template. One more note on the notification template. We love this layout. It's easy to read. Everybody's used to reading it this way. It draws out all the information. You, of course, can make it how you want, but this is really, it might seem jumbled to some, but to many, this is the easiest, best way to read the information. So really use this template, please. So now, one at a time, I'm going to upload my documents. Let's say I want to do my certificate of insurance first. Right here, my certificate of insurance, whatever I want to call it. And I'll click upload. I'm going to go through this with each thing. My 3 documents, my city service request form, my certificate of insurance, and my leaflet, because we want to review all of that. Everything's going to show up right here. It gives me the category. Just because I don't want to wait for each one, I'm just going to explain. So you have those 3. Vendor documentation. You can kind of use this sometimes with a permit. We might ask for an additional document or additional proof or something else. Go ahead and use that vendor documentation. But you don't, that's not required for every permit. So just for internet speed's sake, let's say I uploaded everything to that. I can add every document. This is something we're going to hammer home to everybody, and it says it right here at this point. Please email these documents along with a brief description of your project to filmoffice@cityofchicago.org. This is just repeating what we've said all the time, is that we want to actually talk to you. It's worth noting that once you do this, it goes into a permit queue. Then we're digging through and we need to contact you because we're never going to approve or deny a permit. A lot of people are afraid that we might deny a permit without talking to you and, oh, I'm not sure if I put it in right, and you might deny it. We're not robots. We're not going to mass deny something if everything is not marked right. which is exactly why you should email us with all the documents. One, it makes it so that we know we're looking at your most updated documents as you've emailed it to us. Two, as you might need to redo some of those documents and re-upload, the computer system in the back end could get confused, so always email us. And it makes an introduction. I'm Tim. I'm looking to film. I've submitted this application with this permit number right here. Before I've even completed the permit, it has it. It makes it so a lot easier, so we can just reply to you, say thank you for applying. We're looking over the documents. We can get back to you. If we don't get an email from you, it's in a queue. You might be uncertain if we've even received it. Trust me, we did. But it initiates that conversation with you, and it also means that, you know, when we're issuing you a permit, it's under the understanding that you're going to be responsible with the permit. So someone who also does all, you know, this work online and emails us and introduces themselves, it really shows us that you're going to be a responsible person with the permit. When I have people who just ask, I want to close the street and I can never get a hold of you, and I try calling you, I try emailing you, and I never got a hold of you, I'm not feeling really confident that you're going to be responsible with this permit. So email us every time you put in a permit with all the documents. The next is just legal agreements that I will abide by the permit. You're just going to click agree. That's like an online e-signature. And then really this, we've gone through all these steps. It tries to lay it out because you might start clicking and think, oh my goodness, this is long, or I've been waiting a long time. Just a little meter bar makes you feel good that you're getting close to the end. So what it's doing is it's building all this stuff. All the information you've put in is now going to be built onto this permit. You won't actually see or be able to do anything with the permit other than anything through this web portal until it's issued. But right here, everything that I laid out, and I can verify, and I want to verify everything. So I see that I have a permit application number. It's currently under review. I know who applied for it. I can cancel if, say, location fell out. It has the creation date, the submission date, what date your event actually is. You can verify that. You can verify the applicants. You can verify all this information, and every little thing, as soon as I click edit, will just bring me right back to that step in the application process. I will admit, if I need to edit one of the very first steps, I have to click through all those steps and just click next in order for it to save. So I will admit that is a little annoying. One note, send message about this application. If you click that button, the message is going to go to all of the Department of Transportation, the Chicago Department of Transportation. That's the CDOT permit support. They deal with hundreds more permits, and they have tons for construction and digging and all sorts of things. Don't click that. Just email us. Just email us directly. It's a lot easier. Email us, call us. Don't use this send message about permit. So it's all in, and I see my documents. So that is the web page. You're going to see, if I go back home, I'm now going to have another permit in review, or that's the one I just edited again. So now my one that was, that it was incomplete, it now says it's in review, and I can go and I can change anything. As permits are approved, you pay for them on the site too with your credit card. Everything is online. That brings us back to just one more slide here. Whoops. So I've submitted everything. Now what? Again, email our general inbox with questions. Just a touch base. I've submitted this application. It just gets it in front of our eyes. Always emails all the supporting documents. And as I said, we don't cancel or approve blindly. Don't be afraid that you didn't put everything in correctly, and so we're just going to cancel and you're going to have to go through all this again. We're going to work with you. We're working with the movies, the shows. We're also working with students and independents, and we want to support the arts in Chicago. And we may come back to you with things that we want to work on. Like, hey, you asked for all of Chicago Avenue. How many trucks do you actually have? Do you need it? How can we work around this? Or we might even notify that, hey, there's another construction permit next week that we know they're going to resurface the street. And we'll be able to see that and kind of move you maybe to another street or work with you on those parameters. So that's what we do with that. John, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we do have a couple, and I want to add to that too, is that our goal, no matter the size of our production, is to keep our footprint as small as possible. So we're not over permitting to be safe that we have enough room and whatnot. We're getting really specific with the details and shrinking our footprint as much as we can to maintain that community buy-in that we do need with the residents of Chicago. So we do have a couple more questions here. So for creating an account, I would use my own information, not the company's, but for the actual application, I use the company's. Is that correct? That is correct.
The idea is, once you have a user ID, you're going to be able to use that user ID for years as you need to put in permits. You might not always be associated with that company, but one company can have multiple people as users. So yeah, it's your user account.
And then we have another question here. Would I need a permit to film at a marina? Most likely, yes, but every film permit, every film question is a case-by-case basis. It all depends on what marina you're talking about, where, when, where you're going to be positioned, what you're trying to shoot there. So just call us and we'll help you with that.
Yeah. Now, I know we didn't cover absolutely every possibility with the website. We didn't cover everything with it. And I know that it was hard for me to explain the number system with the grids. We'll walk you through that. Everything case by case, we'll walk you through that. And I kind of did maybe skip a couple things just for brevity and just to kind of keep it focused on, first time permit people. But do we have any other questions? I don't see one. Well, John, I can lead us into my next question for you. When do I need more than a permit? Are there other permits? Where am I looking?
Yes, we've touched on this several times throughout the presentation, but there's a lot of very popular spots in Chicago that we get calls about all the time. And, some of them are managed by the city of Chicago, but others, like I said, are privately managed. So, Millennium Park is its own jurisdiction. So anything revolving Cloudgate, aka the Bean, or Millennium Park, they have their own permitting office. We can connect you to them, call us, we can tell you, when you tell us where you're shooting, we can tell you whose jurisdiction it is. But the museum campus is also very popular down by the Shed or Adler. We can help you with that as well. The museum campus is kind of tricky because it's basically like a park district if you're on the green, but if you're on the concrete, it's the city. The Riverwalk is another very popular one. Seasonally, when it's open, it's very tough to get access to the Riverwalk unless you're a huge production, a huge budget, or you're a very bare bones B-roll crew that's going down there with a couple people and using handheld equipment. But there's a whole nother application process for that. And like everything else, you have to go through our office first to get that application. Government buildings, Daily Plaza, the Park District, Navy Pier, these are all very popular locations, and most of them do have their own permitting offices, but just call us first and we'll connect you to the right parties. Did I miss anything, Tim?
No, I'm just going to add with, the idea of B-roll and how our policy as the city is that you can do general B-roll filming with a handheld camera. That doesn't mean everywhere has that same rule. I would say, for example, Millennium Park, just know that it is a huge tourist area. It's a huge crowd area, and safety is always a concern. So their rule on B-roll filming isn't the same as our general rule. They might let you film without a permit. More likely, you're going to get a permit from them because they have people constantly monitoring that property for safety. We're in a metropolitan city, and there's a lot of people, so something like that might not be. They might have different rules, but we are used to a lot of the ins and outs for a lot of these different properties. And like John said, government buildings, you're going to need a permit for the sidewalk outside of it, but you're going to need a location agreement with the building. And we can, of course, start that process with you for all of these places, either lead you to the right contact, make the connections for you, or process that paperwork for you, depending on the situation.
Yeah, that's a great point. And don't ever make assumptions about anything. Just call us first, because even if you get approved to film B-roll on the Riverwalk, there's still some phone calls that we have to make. We have to let their security know that there might be a small crew down there, or you could get shut down by them. So there's some contacts that we need to make on your behalf, even if it's something that doesn't involve a permit.
Right.
One other thing, we're just in the jurisdiction of the city of Chicago. We don't permit for anything outside of Chicago. So if you have questions about that, a good first place to check in with is the State of Illinois Film Office. I mean, you can also call the suburb, local township or anything of that nature as well. But the Illinois production office is usually, the film office is usually very helpful with that.
Yeah, every area is going to have something different. It might be, if it's a small township, you might be talking to the local police department for a permit. You might just need a written letter with permission. It really depends on everywhere else. And there's enough going on in the city of Chicago. We're not always aware of exactly the permitting process in every suburb. John, there is the question, if I'm filming in a building that I have permission to film, but a window also reveals another building, would I be able to film it? I assume is the end of that question.
That's kind of falls in line with general cityscapes and skylines are okay. If you're filming a bunch of properties together and there's no focus on any one particular building, you're not making it the hero property, it's not part of the storyline. You certainly can't, shoot somebody's house across the street, towards their window and focus on it just because you are inside another location across the street. General cityscape and skyline is okay, but anything that is specific, you're going to need permissions, if not from us, from the private landowner.
Yeah, I would say that goes more into a clearance issue. And as a guy who did clearance on a television show, it's irritating, I can tell you that. Who owns the intellectual property to that building look? When you're in Chicago and you're in the general Chicago, yes, general views of the cityscape are considered part of the public purview. But if you're focusing on a particular building or marquee, you may need to get permission, and that's not necessarily our authority to be able to always tell you. Well, John, I'm going to move on to the last question. Everyone wants to know about drones. So this can be a whole nother presentation on drone flights in Chicago, but can you give us just a few of the beats of it?
I touched on some of the main points already when we had some questions earlier, but basically, we have a drone application process that goes through our office. Anybody that's putting a drone up in the air should call our office and fill out this drone request form with all of the indicated attachments. All you need to do for one of these is contact us and we will send it over to you. But there's a lot of ins and outs with drones, and we can, offer some guidance as far as, tips on the best way to do it in the safest and best manner and that sort of thing. So if you have any questions about drones, it's, case-to-case basis, very specific, devil's in the details, just give us a call.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to just say, prime example of a lot of people want to quote the federal laws, but you always have to think about all the minutia of everything. Is there a certain, what are the laws of the state? What are the laws of the city? Does the community have an ordinance? There's always layers to things, and federal law doesn't always trump everything else.
Generally,
so
hobbyist drone pilots are not going to get many permits approved. They're going to need to have that commercial license in the Part 107 for the most part. And the city of Chicago does have an ordinance. So if a police officer or somebody that's a first responder deems your drone flight to be unsafe, then they can shut it down and impound that drone. So you want to make sure that you check in with us about everything. Yeah,
it never hurts. We really, just to kind of summarize here, permitting is never standard. There's never this is good, this is bad, this works, this doesn't work. We have to look at every situation in terms of what's the production, what's the impact to the community, what's going on in the area, what's happening, especially COVID happening has kind of changed a few of the ways we operate, but we are building up. Chicago is open for business. We just have to make sure that everything is safe and good. So kind of we're saying that we try to answer all the main questions, all the common questions we get, all on our website. so many people will call in and they don't know we have this website, because I know it's a big government site, but chicagofilmoffice.us answers a lot of those questions, but our job is to answer these questions for you as well. And the other thing is just, plan. When you want to permit, when you want to film, as you should learn in school or just from being in the business or just being a freelancer, it's all about planning. We're going to ask you a ton of questions, and so is your location that you're going to be at. They want to know how many people are coming into their house, what's the damage going to be, what's happening. We're asking you all the same questions that you as a filmmaker should be thinking about as you proceed. We don't want to just get the question, can I film on Michigan Avenue? Well, what and when and where and how? I don't know, just can I do it? Well, it's all, we have to take everything into account and how it affects everybody. So I really think that kind of summarizes the idea of when you're putting in a permit, that you've really thought all these things out, and we're going to ask you. And the more that you can just check off our boxes as we're asking you questions, that you've thought about all these things, and you've accounted for this and you've accounted for that, it's great. It's going to slow your permit process up. If every question we have leads that you have to go find the answer, then get back to us, or you don't know the answer, it's just going to slow everything down. So keep that in mind as you're applying for a permit, is that if you're unsure, reach out to us first. If you're permitting and you're still not sure, give yourself enough lead time so that we can kind of work with you on all of these questions. So we'll take any other questions on.
There was one
yeah.
We missed, and it was about rain dates or weather, inclement weather, as far as a permit is concerned. Keep in mind that once a film permit is issued and you pay for it, there are no refunds. So this is a great question. If there's rain in the forecast and you're near your permit date, you may want to build in a rain day. We don't like doing this. Don't do it overzealously. But if it's 70% chance of rain on your film date, and you feel like you need to do that, we understand and we'll work with you on it. So there's kind of a trick to it. You'll have 2 active permits, and you might end up canceling one of them and then getting the other one approved and issued. But if that ever happens, you do need to keep in close contact with us to monitor the situation.
Yeah, and most of the time that rain dates work out best is I might film this week or I might film next week, and I'm working on this week. By having it a few days apart, it gives a chance for the weather to clear up and also for us to properly notify people. It's really hard to process everything for if it's 2 days back to back, and then you suddenly just want to cancel the second one with enough notice. At that point, you've probably already paid for your permit. Like John said, we can't give refunds. The neighborhood has already been notified. The leaflet's already up. Rain dates are tough for productions, no matter the size. They're tough to work around, but we'll have to work with you on each one of those. So I range dates, as the question really says. You're paying for each and every date on your permit. That doesn't mean every 24-hour period, but every calendar date. So if you're filming overnight and you want to film, from Friday night to Saturday night, that's 2 dates. So that's that 250 times 2. So if you do want rain coverage, let's talk about it. Let's figure out the best way to approach that depending on your situation. But no, there would not be this permit is valid for one of the 2 days. That doesn't work that way. All right. So so this really concludes our presentation. I hope we walked you through your planning process, your logistic questions. I mean, there are entire courses in college about location managing and scouting and everything in between. So we really couldn't cover everything. But I like the questions that have come in because it's really hit a lot of the basic questions that we'll get from either first time or people who just kind of want to know if there's another option as they've been doing it for a few years. I think a lot of these questions have kind of hit that. Just to reiterate, you can call us, you can leave us a message, you can email us. we work for you. We're not, we are, you know, government workers. We work for you. We work for the citizens, and we work for the city of Chicago. So we're here to answer your questions. And we'll continue hanging on for a few more minutes to answer any other questions on either Facebook or YouTube. Not sure even if they're coming in because I am so distracted. I'm not even looking at those. We have another representative from the film office actually channeling those. John, do you have any other final thoughts on permitting? You're mute.
No, I don't, Tim. You know, just hammering on that point that we're the one-stop shop. You call us for everything, and we'll offer guidance.
Yep. Yeah, we will lead you in the right direction every time. Contact us first. Well, I think that wraps us up. We've had the phone number up. We've had the email up. A little longer than we thought it would be, because I can start rambling when I ramble. But hopefully, you've learned that the everything online actually makes things easier, and you're not scanning in and faxing documents to us anymore, which is good. All right. So I want to thank everybody who's been watching us, everybody who's been tuning in. I do believe we have the plan of throwing this video up on our new YouTube channel that we've started to start having more informational guides for everybody. So make sure you check out YouTube and join our Chicago Film Office group. We do hope to have this full, long 2-hour video up there for you so you can kind of skip to the bits you want to know about. All right. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. And thank you, John.
See you later, everybody.